Hi, I'm Mia Parrish, and this is Devils in the Details. And today I'm with Lev Gonick and Kyle Squires talking about the really exciting recent Zoom partnership that's coming to Arizona and how that came together. So we kick off with Lev and just sort of tell us a little bit about how this came to pass. And we obviously have a relationship with Zoom that goes back longer than the spring semester.
That's true, Mia, and actually it goes back before there was actually a Zoom. Um, I've had a long relationship with it turns out, the founder and a number of his key colleagues when they worked with another very big technology company in Silicon Valley. I was a customer of theirs back in the day, and when they launched Zoom, especially the Zoom for enterprise for big complicated organizations like ASU, it just happened to coincide with my arrival at ASU about 2.5 years ago. And at the time, there was a whole bunch of different competing products, which I'm sure Kyle will remember well. And I said, if this is an enterprise product, the job of the chief information officer is to try to sort of create some idea of what we could do at the enterprise level. And in the end, through an open competition, we selected Zoom, and that's the backdrop to kind of how we got to Zoom. And then, of course, March 16th happened, and and we can talk more about that.
And Kyle, they selected, Zoom selected coming here really largely based on your students at the Ira Fulton Schools of Engineering. I'm told maybe you could talk a little bit about that and what attracted the decision to bring, it's 500 jobs?
It is. It's several hundred. And I think it's very consistent with what we've seen with other partners when they're making decisions about where they want to locate another office, bring some set of capabilities. There's two things they need desperately. One is talent. And talent means engineers and computer scientists. And to grow rapidly and at scale, you need a lot of them. So to set context, last year we graduated over 4,700 engineers, technologists, and computer scientists. That's close to number one in the country. And that's a lot of fresh ideas and new talent coming into their system. And the second need is obvious. They need ideas. These companies, Zoom is a great example. They're smart. They know what they need. They know where they're going. But getting that set of spectrum of ideas that will come from the faculty, driving research forward and so forth, that really is a differentiator. And that's really increasingly why we're winning when it comes to these companies making these decisions to come to the Valley.
It was exactly that pitch that I took directly to Eric Yuan. We knew we were just a customer. And I started socializing with him and his colleagues. And he just didn't know about Kyle Squires' Fulton Schools of Engineering.
Right.
And they were blown away by the size, the scale, the magnitude of its role, not only here in this marketplace, but nationally and beyond. And one thing led to another: relationships, conversations. I offered to introduce Eric to President Crow. He was incredibly gratified and humbled by the opportunity to speak to our president. And as all of us who know President Crow, when you get President Crow in front of most anyone, including the CEO of probably one of the true darlings at the moment of the technology marketplace, magic happened.
No one could have imagined the environment that we're in, even Zoom. This wasn't what they were built for, to be serving. How many hundreds of thousands of sessions have we had at ASU this spring?
Almost now 400,000 sessions, almost 7 million minutes of Zoom exchanges since March the 16th.
What kind of engineers do this kind of work? Not being an engineer.
It's going to be, computer science, software engineers, increasingly as they begin to think through what's going to be their, ultimate coming ways of evolution. They're driving a lot of ideas around the future of work. And that future of work is going to bring in different types of engineering talent. And especially when you think about human-computer interaction, when you think about the future of the workforce in terms of persons, people, groups acting with machines, with robots, how do they collaborate? Zoom is enabling us to engage right now, and we're all in different places. But soon it's going to be integral to how we think about teaming, collaboration, driving projects forward. And again, that's where, good, smart, forward-thinking companies, that's already, in their minds. We're going to be integral to helping drive that forward.
And it's an R&D center that's coming here. How do you, either one of you can answer, both of you can answer. How do you see that? How do you see them interacting with our faculty, staff, students in that R&D environment? What's the expectation in that?
So I think that initially it's going to be, again, they're driving their R&D strategies forward with the folks that they bring. We want them to collaborate with our faculty and bring our students into that. And the research questions are significant. And one that we know that's gotten a lot of attention owing to how quickly, Zoom was basically deployed around the world, frankly, security,
right,
privacy, teaming. And we're on the front edge of those questions, and that's where you're going to find a lot of expertise among our faculty to help solve those problems.
All right, the issues in the cybersecurity space, which ASU has scaled up so incredibly, I think would be really relevant as well as part of that project.
The prospect of working with our faculty and our students was hugely important. You think, there was just another small engineering school called Carnegie Mellon that they decided to work with in Pittsburgh. Like that is good company
Right.
for the prospect of working with faculty and students at the highest level. And it wasn't because it was just Pittsburgh and Phoenix. It was because it was ASU here in Phoenix that made this relevant.
How quickly did that come together?
Remarkably quickly. When President Crow met and spoke with the CEO, Eric asked him, what could we be doing together? And President Crow said, "You should be here." And Eric's number two, responsible for all of sales globally, took the assignment, and the group of us from ASU, and including our lead, Grace O'Sullivan, for our corporate relations, and our team working in the president's office, put a proposal. We were very prescriptive, and we got into the competition. Like there is actually a competition for this, and then when Eric got back together with President Crow, and President Crow says, "So how long will it take?" Eric said to Michael Crow, "I'm committed 200%. And the next day we heard that we were selected.
I'm curious your thoughts, Kyle and Lev, about how this could also change, how it is already changing higher education.
So I think that among the other opportunities, frankly, what has this done when you have to make this abrupt pivot? It's really opened up minds. A lot of times, again, people are so busy, they're wedded to a particular way of doing things that, when forced into some new ways of thinking or doing, you begin to realize, oh, I have a whole other set of, technologies available, say, to teach my course, to engage with students and so forth. Mm-hmm. And this is frankly what we're spending just an awful lot of time right now and over the summer. How do we now teach as we move into the fall semester in a blended environment, right? Mm-hmm. Where students are on campus, students are on Zoom, promoting interaction. Everybody's in the same playing field. Okay, I'll say in the olden days, which is only months ago at this point, frankly, is the students who were distributed, that is not physically in the classroom, were sort of invisible. Not anymore, right? They're equal participants. And if we get it right, or when we get it right, we'll have integrated them fully into that classroom experience. And Zoom is going to enable all those things.
I would only just add that, a lot of my peers are looking forward to, quote unquote, returning to the good old days when they don't need to be using technologies like Zoom. And I think at ASU, we've embraced the idea that this is a forever kind of scenario, mm-hmm. because we're responding to the market, we're responding to student interest about having additional flexibility. As Kyle was just saying, a different way of actually interacting, mm-hmm. In some ways much more intense, much more intimate, because we're all seeing each other's faces as we're working here. And so ASU actually has a new mode of learning, and we're calling it ASU Sync. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be blended, as Kyle said, it's going to be a blended modality, and it's both for convenience and flexibility, but it's also to make sure that our international students who may or may not be able to come back at exactly the right time, our students with underlying health conditions may or may not be able to participate, our faculty who may or may not be able to participate in exactly the way they've been able to in the past. This just provides huge opportunity for ASU to continue to lead, and also to think about our commitment to scaling our education offering to new learners all over the world.
Kyle, how are you excited about that? I mean, it's a little scary, right, to be reimagining higher education and how we disseminate that in real time, and looking out farther than, post-pandemic.
It is, and I would say that, among the other different ways we can think about this is frankly one modality of promoting access.
Yes.
We know that that's endemic to, ASU's fabric, right? It's burned into the charter. We think about it often. So leveraging technology has typically been thought about, how do I increase my scale? That is, for a unit of input, I can reach more learners. Well, that's still true, and that will still be true going forward. But now we can think about it in reaching different learners who, for various reasons, can't, say, physically be on the campus. That boundary is gone. And again, as we promote those set of ideas, it will beget other ideas that none of us are thinking about at the moment that will improve our programs and improve the product, which is the student. Improving the student experience, producing great graduates. At the core, that's what we want to be able to do. And this is why this is so important.
And Mia, if I could just say that I also think that this is what's so attractive to Zoom. I think Zoom wants to be here where the future is being invented in exactly the way that Kyle outlined. And they don't want to just sell us or just get our students. They actually want to be where the big ideas are. And I know that was a significantly attractive part of what brought Zoom to our area.
So what's next?
Some of the what's next is there's still the hill to climb to get to the fall semester, and everybody's pulling, and it's going to be plenty of challenges, but that's part of it. But then when you really think out, okay, you get your eyes above the fall semester into the horizon. Some of the next opportunities for these technologies will be increasing the ability in a distributed meeting like this one for nuance, for what you might do around the conference table, where you might whisper to your person sitting next to you, hey, what did they say, or what did they mean by that? And being able to promote those sorts of interactions that will bring in new technology opportunities.
Right, what's the role? You're adding.
Yeah, exactly. What's the role of AI in promoting or facilitating the way that we do this? How do we make that happen within Zoom?
I was a little skeptical, right? I love being in front of students. I love being able to interact with them. And I found it a really great experience. I actually think it improved aspects of it in many, many ways. So I was converted. I want to thank both of you for joining us today, joining me and Devils in the Details to talk about this exciting partnership and what's ahead with it. So thank you, Kyle, and thank you, Lev, for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.